Alright, so this is going to be the last Transcendence Review video. I ended up sticking to my word in the preview where I said I would make reviews for each of my characters. So DL's Transcendence is as unfortunate as I thought it'd be in the preview. There have been a mixed bag of changes since then. Some things have changed for the better, some for the worse. Regardless, I think their Transcendence isn't particularly what DL needed. The new CP skill is by far more promising than anything here, but it's not an NA yet, so I kinda have to work with what I have here. So let's get started. So Awaken Will. It says Awaken Will Dreadlord, but it's really Awaken Will Lucio. The main issue with this passive is the activation requirement. So you need 5 combination points or less. While this does allow combination skills to reap the benefits of the extra critical maximize, you don't really spend that much time after the combination skill with this passive on as DL. The reason why is because you need to constantly be rebuffing Dead Hands, and Dead Hands only has a 9-second cooldown, even less when you consider in that you'll likely be activating Threat of Terror. As well, your common skill cycles really put you above 5 CP. So let's say your common skills are likely Supreme Punishment, Dead Hands, Aurochs, and Runius. The only combination of those 4 skills that goes underneath 5 CP is Dead Hands and Aurochs. Attempting to use this passive for as long as possible by, say, putting Dead Hands on Lu, as in like using it on her, or using Supreme Punishment with CL's MP, it really hampers like your MP management. After all, the concept of Lucio encourages just swapping characters over and over and over in order to use the standby MP regeneration to its fullest. I guess the one exception to this is, oddly enough, if you use Dead Hands plus Aurochs from CL to Lu 2 times in a row. Aurochs' MP game bonus is really good on CL. However, its movement speed reduction, I personally think it discourages people from using it everywhere. So it gets limited to Handier and Heroic mostly, where either the pace is slowed down or you don't need that movement speed as much. As for the actual bonuses, well, the light product is actually very useful for me. After all, I do use light, as you can see. With this passive, I actually get over 18% chance to proc light. Wow, that is when I finish a new 4D 2 out of 5 effect. That would be pretty soon. The standby MP cost reduction is very welcomed. In fact, if you just want to use this passive specifically for that, be my guest, that's a good alternative. However, that does get reduced from 20% reduction to 10% reduction later on, so it's not as effective. Overall, I think this passive needs an activation reworking. It's either really awkward to use if you want to keep it around, or you just forget about it and just throw it to the side for your basic Lucio concepts. Maybe if the passive activated based on the amount of combination points you had, let's say like 10 total, and if it had like different tiers. So let's say if you had 10 combination points or 0, then you would get the maximum benefit of this passive. And then 9 combination points or 1, you would get the second most, 8 and 2 third most, so on and so forth. Where at 5 you'd get no bonus at all. To me, that would encourage setting up MP, like your MP bars on both Lu and CL, so that after your combination skill, you would just immediately try to dump your CP or dump your MP to immediately reap the benefits of Awaken Will, because you'll get right back up to max CP. The passive would need rebalancing if it worked like that, but that's okay. I don't really have any problems of the bonuses it gives when you activate the passive. However, I'm not really sure why Light Resist minus exists on it. I don't know. So, next passive, Demonic Authority. So my impression of this passive in the preview to now is completely different, particularly because, well, the information I got in the preview video was incorrect. So the LWiki video that I saw and was supposed to give you the information said that the passive was looking for a super armor outline, which Aurochs actually does. However, the thing is that you don't even need that. It just works by itself. So in turn, this passive works without Aurochs at all. So if the game will give me it, there you go. So there's the cooldown reduction and the CP regain. So I had to build my impressions of this passive pretty much from scratch from the preview video. After using it for a little bit, or at least trying to, non-Aurochs Apollyon seems to be the preferred method of using this passive. Since you're not in Aurochs, you don't get the increased Dark Beast chance. It's still at 15%, which in turn means you actually get an increased chance for the cooldown reduction. And cooldown reduction is kind of everything to deal. Funnily enough, the skill that you want to have the cooldown reduction on the most is Aurochs, but it increases the Dark Beast chance. Maybe this is their way of balancing it. Who knows? The cooldown reduction is based off of the remaining time on the skill's cooldown. So if you only have 2 seconds left on the cooldown, you'll only shave off 0.4 seconds. So if you want to get the most cooldown reduction, you would need to use Apollyon right after the skill that you want to be want to have the cooldown reduction on be used. As for Apollyon itself, it doesn't really gain any utility buffs from this passive. It's still pretty slow to activate. You still need to depend on stacks for its size and damage and so on and so forth. However, you can just whiff Apollyon if you really don't care about it, and you'll get the bonuses as you saw. And as you see just there. As for the CP regain, apparently it activates Specialization A. I didn't really think it would, but it does. Getting that getting those 2 combination points might be bad because you actually have even less time with Awakened Will being activated, because your next skill will most likely take you out of it. It's also somewhat good because it allows you to get back up to 10 CP sooner. So all you need is, well, Supreme and Runius, for example, instead of having to use Dead Hands or Aurochs on top of that. Overall, this is in the same situation as the level 80 passive. It just needs a little bit more leniency on activating the cooldown reduction and gaining CP. Like, why does that need Apollyon? Why can't that just be on any combination skill, right? And in general, I'm just unsure of how useful this passive is for me. After all, I only use Apollyon in emergencies right now. While Freditera got nerfed quite some time ago, the amount of cooldown reduction it has is still enough for DL to get by right now. So getting more cooldown reduction, especially in this manner, is not really that good, or it's not really as good as it may seem, I feel like. The Dark Beast chance proc needing Aurochs, I personally think it discourages liberal usage from just using Aurochs than Apollyon, because you may want to keep Aurochs a little bit later on just for its actual utility, for allowing you to take 0 damage and having super armor and the MP regain and so on and so forth. And personally speaking, the ability to spring step is very important, because this is actually the first character that I learned to spring step on. I didn't need to learn it up until Lucio. I'm trying to see if I can use this passive more, as in trying to see if I can fit a Apollyon more in Hanir at least. As for dungeons, well, I guess I just gotta figure that out. So let's move on to skills here. Before we do, I guess a couple of general notes. All Transcendence skills for DL, including the special actives, they all build terror stacks instead of blocking them, which is kind of odd, but whatever. If you have Dead Hands up, they build 5 stacks, which is pretty cool. I guess they did that so that these skills would have their own uses for building stacks in kind of odd ways. However, they still, like, the stacks built from the special actives and bluff, I guess, is still activated by Force of Fear if you have Dead Hands up, which is really annoying to me. I've really grown to hate Force of Fear because sometimes I just want those stacks there, but you know, they just randomly proc. I don't like that. So Fear Tomorrow. Fear Tomorrow builds 1 stack. Okay. Its initial damage from actually summoning the AoE, it's not like Harpoon Spear or Quake Buster where it's you do the AoE and if the AoE hits you also get the initial damage, unfortunately. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to be in point blank. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. So typically this does 1 hit for the initial like summoning of the AoE. And then usually you get 3 hits for the AoE itself. Maybe 4. I think you can get 5, but usually 3. So this does 2 to 2.5k damage, which isn't that bad at all. And as you saw, the area it controls, it can surprisingly hit platforms, if I can show it. There you go. However, it can sometimes whiff because of the spacing and the hitbox following the visual. So if like the AoE is like moving down, it might whiff platform mobs. Well, enough actually completely whiffs underneath, and you need to space out from mobs so that you just don't hit with the summoning as you just saw. So if I space it out a little bit, you can see that I get the AoE hits there. So the damage isn't bad. It builds stacks, that's okay, and the range it tries to hit at is good enough, albeit kind of specific. But the problem is where it's using the MP from. Since it's the CL skill, you're usually using it from CL to Lu, or excuse me, from Lu to CL, so that you gain this combination points from it. However, my Lu's MP is almost exclusively for Supreme Punishment, as well as Hunting Prey so that she can use it, and if I ever need the extra MP for Dead Hands and Aurochs, and CL doesn't have the MP, then she has it. I feel that DL still has enough cooldown reduction from Threat of Terror and Demonic Authority if you use that enough, to where I really don't feel like you need the MP, or you don't really need to have the need to spend your MP like this on Fear Tomorrow purely for damage. In order to get the most out of this skill, you need to stand in the middle of a mob group, and the only real situation DL would do that is for Apollyon, or like you want to sit in the middle of a Supreme Punishment like DOT. Since this does build stacks, and if you use the skill, then you can build stacks while Supreme is going. So the skill can be used to set those 2 skills up, but again, like in the scope of like MP usage, this skill kind of gets left out. So overall, I can't really recommend using Fear Tomorrow, but it isn't as bad as I thought. I thought it'd be like super garbage, but it's not that bad, I think, at least. It aims to be like a damage 100 MP and build stacks, when Supreme Punishment with CLX can more or less achieve the same thing for better reward. It doesn't have the utility of the other CL100 MPs, So, like for Dancing Blade, which I use and personally enjoy, Dancing Blade is mostly used for positioning, or like you need a lot of iframes since you can delay the hits. Or for Phantom Blade, you can proc tier stacks while building them in the same skill, or you can use it to cycle MP for CP because you can just whiff it and get half the MP back. And Dark Crescent, while I don't necessarily like it for its gear line status, it is a flexible AoE attack at the end of the day. DM just needs more tools to cover situations, not necessarily more damage. And so I feel that Fear Tomorrow, not that great overall. Okay, so next skill. I'm not even going to use this skill. It's called Bluff. So, Bluff's so bad that I'm not even going to show it to you. Okay? I don't get what's the point of turning things towards you as DL. I mean, don't you want everything to turn away from you? just don't use it, please. Okay? Alright, next skill. Dead Cross. So, Dead Cross works a lot like Fear Tomorrow, where you want to be in the middle of groups to maximize range. However, it working on CL MP, since you're going from CL to Lu, makes all the difference to me. Currently, the MP on CL is only being used for dead hands for me. Ruinia's Impact isn't used as often because you need super armor. You need a super armor mob for it to not knock down now. Because with the removal of the debuff, you can't ignore guard. So having it knock down, you'll actually reduce your follow-up damage. As well, it doesn't, the debuff, since the debuff is gone, you no longer get the 100% defense reduction. So your damage is just overall less for the follow-ups. And as for Aurochs, as I stated before, the movement speed reduction, I personally don't like to use it, or I don't like that part, so I don't use it liberally in like mobbing and such. In hair embossing, it's pretty spammable, but you gain the MP back, as I said before, on CL pretty fast. So Dead Cross has a really odd hitbox. So hopefully I can show it here. Okay, that's about 4 hits. 4 hits is the max, by the way, but if you stand a little bit further, I think you can get it to not hit. Oh, okay. There is a certain range where you can only have maybe 1 or 2 hits hit, but it's very specific. You'll rarely get that. As for like the actual first hit, you need to be a little bit closer. I think it's about here-ish. Oh, a little bit more. There we go. So let's see here. What else about this hitbox? So here comes the funky part about it. Let me set up the string monkey here. Give me a moment. With the monkey here, you actually whiff on the first part, but hit with the second part. When you do it on the same elevation as it, you get the opposite effect, which is very weird. Sometimes what can happen is that you can actually completely whiff on the same elevation, but when you're like above the monkey, you can hit with the second part. It's very, very odd. And the same thing applies for its vertical range. So let me try to show that there. Okay, so as you can see here, the first part whiffs, and the second part hits. However, if you stand right underneath it, both parts whiff. It's a very finicky skill in terms of hitboxes. And in fact, I feel like the skill whiffs even when within visual range. I feel this the most in the Velder mini boss room in Henier. I thought this might just be my imagination, and if it is, just take this with a grain of salt. But it may or may not be. It's leaning towards not. not being my imagination. So in terms of utility for the skill, it builds 2 stacks. So once on the first hit and once on the rest, as you can see here. So how about we try doing Supreme Punishment? So the general concept of using this during Supreme Punishment is that you're building the stacks with Dead Cross while Supreme procs them. And this is a good alternative if you have excessive MP laying about, or you actually need the CP to gain access to the combination skill. So let me show it off here. As you can see, you save the stacks. So usually I use XX, and I thought about using Dead Cross. Well, how about we fuse the 2 together? So I would do and as you can see, I end up with stacks still remaining on it. So the timing is that right after the 3rd hit of the Land of Death or the DOT, you just do dash X with CL. And that dash X should apply the 4th stack that Supreme procs while you activate Dead Cross. The first hit of Dead Cross will give you the 5th stack that Supreme will proc, and then it'll give you another stack after Supreme ends, so that you end up with stacks on the mobs. You can also just jump over after the 3rd hit of the DOT if you find that a little bit more reliable. It should be. If you're aiming for just a single mob, or there's just one left, you can just use Dead Cross after the 4th hit of the DOT. You may need to delay it slightly though in that scenario, because you do have to wait for Creeping Terror's cooldown to build stacks to be off. The purpose in doing this is, well, so that you have stacks after Supreme, as I mentioned. This is mainly used for Apollyon. A common skill chain you can use with this tactic is Dead Hands, Supreme, Dead Cross, Apollyon. You can cut out the Dead Hands if 1, Demonic 40's cooldown reduction procs, as in Apollyon, and 2, if you can get Apollyon off a cooldown right away via the Transcendence skill slot cooldown reset. So if you get this skill cycle in parties or just soloing, I think it's a pretty good cycle overall. It might be a little bit time consuming. I'm pretty sure it's not as fast paced, but that's okay. So overall, for Dead Cross, this kind of just continues DL's transcendence of being a little bit too restrictive. In this case, it's all about the hitboxes. The hitboxes are so funky. I don't understand why. Just make them consistent. Just make them the same thing. Just, delay the 2 hitboxes. I don't know. But as it stands, it's still a useful skill to have around. You do have to work for it to maximize its potential, though. So that's a summary. I'm not really sure why KOG wants to keep making DL's tools like forcefully strict. I mean, is this really the price I pay for wanting to play my favorite Lu? I really enjoy her Transcendence portrait. Okay. Awaken Will, with its combination point of restriction on actually getting the passive to activate, it feels like it conflicts with DL's playstyle and maybe Luciel's in general. Demonic Authority, it forces you to use Apollyon in a way that I don't think it's necessarily designed for. After all, Apollyon is all about like setting up stacks to get the maximum size and damage, but the passive kind of encourages you to use it as it's a CP skill, just use it right away, like Nether Shredder or Eschaton on MB. Fear Tomorrow doesn't really provide any utility besides building a single terror stack. If you're using 100 MP on CL, you're likely using it for something that isn't particularly for damage. And if you need damage, just use Supreme Punishment often, right? I don't have any comments on Bluff more than I've already said. And for Dead Cross, it's just really close. It's very close to being a well-rounded skill. It just needs consistent hitboxes. In its current state, however, it's still a good alternative to Runia's Impact to build CP from CL to loot. So, we're at the end of the video. Thank you for watching and listening. It is over for me talking. I have not talked this much in quite some time. I've said this before, but I'm not really that much of a talker, so I do appreciate everyone who's actually like listened to me talk and sort of dealt with me stumbling on my words or stuttering and such. I should probably just go back to, you know, playing this game instead of just explaining everything. So hopefully I can do that at some point in the future. Alright, so take care.